Good evening from Westminster, where the Arctic weather matches, I suspect, the public mood. This was a day of extraordinary drama here that began with the news that the Prime Minister would face a leadership challenge and has ended with the announcement that she has survived the critical vote of confidence by Conservative MPs. It was 204, 117, again 63% in favour, to save you doing the maths. She is now safe for another year, and she has made it clear tonight that she may not go on much beyond that, promising her MPs that she would be gone before the next election. But especially worrying for her team, the sense that there are more than 100 MPs who may be willing to vote against her deal. In short, we end today where we began it, with the House behind me here just as clueless as to how it is going to deliver on that Brexit vote.
Ever since the last election, there have been those who predicted and plotted Theresa May's downfall.
Have you won?
She didn't know at that point, but shortly after, in room 14 inside the Houses of Parliament, the moment of truth.
The Parliamentary Party does have confidence.
The applause was loud and long, but the victory wasn't resounding. 117 of her colleagues voting against the Prime Minister. However, at the end of a gruelling day in a gruelling year, the Prime Minister survives to fight on.
This has been a long and challenging day, but at the end of it, I'm pleased to have received the backing of my colleagues in tonight's ballot. Whilst I'm grateful for that support, a significant number of colleagues did cast a vote against me, and I've listened to what they said.
And she made this promise.
For my part, I've heard what the House of Commons said about the Northern Ireland backstop. And when I go to the European Council tomorrow, I will be seeking legal and political assurances that will assuage the concerns that members of Parliament have on that issue.
As difficult to achieve, perhaps, as it was to say.
So here is our renewed mission: delivering the Brexit that people voted for, bringing the country back together, and building a country that truly works for everyone.
But can you get your Brexit deal through?
And that is the challenge, the scale of the opposition to her deal now crystal clear.
This has been a strong vote of support for the Prime Minister, but nonetheless, this has not been an ideal day for the Conservative Party. There are clearly divisions of opinion. She now has the job of unifying the party, but most particularly of delivering Brexit in March and making sure that the package that comes back to the House of Commons is one that it will accept.
The Brexiter side of the party now unable to challenge her for another year, but still able to rebel.
Now, among the backbench infantry, over half have lost confidence in her, so from the Prime Minister's point of view, this is a pretty devastating outcome.
As for those aiming to take her place, not their moment.
Just gonna get on my bike.
Boris Johnson pedalling off, destination unknown. This is where the drama unfolded this evening in room 14, just down there here on Committee Corridor, inside the Palace of Westminster. First, the Prime Minister had to argue for her political life in front of her backbenchers. Then her colleagues trooped in there to cast their votes in a secret ballot. After the months of drama, in the space of just a couple of hours, the Prime Minister's future was decided. After voting, supportive MPs began tweeting images of their ballot papers, marking their continued confidence in Theresa May as leader. But as the votes were counted and verified, it became clear just what the Prime Minister had traded for support.
She was very heartfelt about this, but she understands that her priority must be, as expected by the party, but also by the country, to get a smooth exit from the EU. And so she has said that that will be, that is her priority, and that she will not be leading us into the next election.
Clearly, a lot of people will welcome the fact that she said she won't fight the 2022 election and that we'll have a new leader for then, and so she will be able to concentrate all her energy on getting the best Brexit deal, and that's what she should be doing from tomorrow morning when she flies off to the European Council in Brussels.
So one battle won, there won't be much rest for the Prime Minister. The numbers prepared to vote against her deal look even more daunting. And in throwing everything at staying on in number 10 now, she's had to trade her future hold on power. Romilly Weeks, News at 10, Westminster.
Well, here with me, appropriately, is Jacob Rees-Mogg, the chair of the European Research Group and one of Mrs May's biggest critics, I think it is fair to say, or critics of her deal anyway. Do you accept now that you've lost, and will you support Mrs May's deal from here on in?
Her deal is a very bad deal, and this vote indicates how little support it's got. What you have to remember is that 163 members of the Conservative Party in Parliament are on the payroll, and therefore the Prime Minister only won an additional 37. And against that, she lost 117. Now, these are the people, her backbenches voted against her overwhelmingly. That's a really bad result for the Prime Minister.
But I understand that, but you have been arguing for some time that it's very important that MPs respect the vote of the people. Here's another vote. Surely it is time for you to respect this vote, respect her deal, and allow everyone to move on.
Crucially, this vote came about because the Prime Minister pulled the vote on Monday. And the normal constitutional convention is that a Prime Minister cannot get her business through the House of Commons. She resigns. And that's always been our precedent. She couldn't get her business through on Monday. Why? Because she said herself in her statement that she would lose so heavily. She's now got the majority of backbench MPs not having confidence in her. I think it's therefore clear that she has lost the confidence of the House of Commons as a whole because of the deal being so bad. That's the problem. That's what it's the heart of it.
How do we go on from here? There'll be millions of people watching this programme last night getting rather exasperated about the whole thing and wanting to know what the answer is. How do we realistically move forward?
Well, what somebody very wisely said to me the other day is that he didn't vote for a deal, he voted to leave the European Union. And that's what we've got to get on with. We've got to leave on the 29th of March. And if that means going to WTO terms, that's fine, we will have left. And the government has to show some backbone. The current withdrawal agreement doesn't take us out of the customs union, splits up the United Kingdom.
Do you accept that there is no majority in that House for a no-deal exit, and that the House will probably try and block a no-deal exit, and that it would be a constitutional crisis if the government then tried to go ahead with it?
I think that exaggerates. You say there's no deal, no majority for a no deal. But that ignores the fact that Parliament passed legislation that means we leave on the 29th of March whether we've got a deal or not. Parliament's already legislated for that. That is the law of the land. And to change that, it would have to pass legislation. It can't just stop the law of the land operating.
OK, we will see. For now, thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. Well, let's go and join our political editor, Robert Pester, now, who's on the set of his programme. No doubt very well worth a watch this evening, as it always is. Robert, let's just try and look forward a bit if we can on this. 117 of her MPs voting against her. What do you think that means for her deal if she brings it back to the House?
It means she loses, and, you know, she loses by a humiliating margin, probably as big as she would have got earlier this week if she'd had the courage to have the vote. And I think the important thing to bear in mind is that 117 of her colleagues voted against her, despite knowing more or less what she's likely to get from the EU, to try and allay their concerns. As we've just heard from James Mates, there will be words from European leaders saying that they want this backstop, which so many Tory MPs hate, to be temporary, but the withdrawal agreement, which makes the backstop legally binding, will not be reopened. And when it comes to her Brexiters, even some of her Remainer critics, and indeed the DUP from Northern Ireland, whose support she needs to be able to govern, they say they cannot support her Brexit plan unless the withdrawal agreement is amended. It won't be. So we are still locked in crisis in this country over the most important initiative being taken by any government for decades, which is how to get us out of the European Union.
But, Robert, we've talked about this, I know, so many times, but you say locked in crisis. I mean, it's literally locked in crisis, isn't it? Because, as you just mentioned, the DUP are effectively suggesting they will bring down her government, even if she does get anything like her deal through.
So, look, there are a number of imponderables at the moment. I've got John McDonnell, the Shadow Chancellor, coming on the show later on tonight, and I will be putting to him, when will Labour be forcing the vote of no confidence in the whole government that it has been threatening the government with? Now, the DUP, in the absence of a significant amendment to her plan, could well vote with Labour. At that point, of course, she would be toast, because under a first vote, she would, if she lost it, she would have to go. Now, it doesn't mean we didn't automatically get a general election, but that would be curtains for her. There's another really important issue here, which is on January the 21st, and this is something that the Prime Minister herself made reference to this morning before the vote. If there is no deal agreed, in theory, at that point, Parliament takes over control of effectively what kind of Brexit we get. She has threatened her MPs that if Parliament takes over, we might get a no-deal Brexit, but more likely, we might get no Brexit at all. The stakes tonight as high, frankly, as any of us have known over the most important decision facing this country. And just to repeat what you've been saying, this is not the worst result that we've had today for Theresa May, but it's a pretty poor result.
OK, Robert, thank you very much indeed.